Would you turn a much-loved pet into a lion's lunch or a tiger's tea? Well, a Danish family have done exactly that.
Yes, the mum and daughter decided to give the daughter's horse, Chicago, 57, that was the name, to Aalborg Zoo after it appealed for pet donations to feed to its predators. Now, critics have described the move as bizarre and cruel. They argue the horse was at the end of, pony was at the end of its life, and it's environmentally sustainable and part of the natural cycle of life.
Well, OK, let's get into this. Is it ethical to feed kind of beloved pets to zoo animals? Farmer Gareth Wyn-Jones believes that there's no difference between having pets euthanised by a vet and then sending the carcass, basically, to the zoo to be used as food for the predators. But broadcaster Athea Hagen, who has a pet rabbit, there it is, called James, says that the very thought of her pet being used as food makes her want to cry. Well, let's start with you then, Athea. When we look at James, we see a kind of a cute, flopsy bunny, don't we? When a lion or a tiger looks at James, he sees a light snack before lunch. It's all part of the food chain, isn't it?
Well, it isn't, it isn't. I think with pets that we have at home, that we have a contract with, that we've sort of brought into our families, that's different from having like wild rabbits, say rabbits in the wild, that know that they are that part of the food chain, that it's the circle of life, essentially.
No, they don't.
And I think it's a really sort of disturbing...
No, a wild rabbit doesn't know that it's a wild rabbit.
But a house rabbit knows it's a house rabbit. A pet knows that it's part of a family and that it's a pet, right? And so I think sort of the end of life for a pet, which can be very difficult for a family, to then have that beloved pet fed to another wild animal, is just a very jarring end to life. And there's lots of ethical ways that animals in zoos can be fed, and I just don't think that sort of giving your family pet to a zoo, obviously when it's passed away, when it's euthanized, is a good end to life for a family pet that you have a really loving contract with.
I think a lot of people would feel like you, and it's your emotional response as clearly an adoring pet owner to lovely James there. They would agree with you, but you know, Gareth Wyn-Jones, you feel differently, don't you? You've got some gorgeous cows behind you, which presumably, you know, are going to go into the food chain at some point.
Yeah, they're my bread and butter, not my pets, to be honest with you. I like a good rabbit pie as well, and Richard has tried my squirrel burgers in the studio, so he knows what I'm talking about. It's a personal choice. I think the individual has that personal choice if they have that, you know, connection with the animal and they don't want to see it being eaten. But environmentally, it would be better for the planet if people would donate their pets to zoos, because they're just going to be cremated or buried. So it's a total waste, really. So for me, you know, personal choice, you wouldn't force anybody, but they put a bit of a tax incentive on this job as well for the people. So for me, if you look at it, maybe some people can't afford to keep their pets, so they're in a position, they've lost their job, or, you know, they haven't got that income to pay for their 10 rabbits. So this is a way that they can, you know, offload that problem, and it's going to be utilised by them animals in that zoo. So it can be a win-win situation. But again, it's a personal choice. If you love, you know, Peter Rabbit and you don't want it to be eaten by a tiger, that's your choice. I'm the kind of guy that puts Peter Rabbit in the kind of pie.
I wonder if it's part, Gareth, of what you might feel is the complicated relationship we have with food and eating and the food chain anyway. You know, you will cuddle and stroke your beloved pet, but then tuck into some chicken that's come out of a supermarket wrapping. Is that sort of what you're getting at, that we're kind of divorced from the reality of the natural world in a way?
Yeah, totally. You know, I shoot, I hunt, I fish. I know what it takes to put food on my plate, and I understand that, you know, something will die for you to be fed, something along the line. You know, wasting that is a great shame. So, you know, utilising it. You know, when aeroplanes crash in the middle of the mountains, people go into cannibalism so that they don't starve to death. Okay. So you'll do anything if you're hungry. So there's things that we have to look at and address the balance. But I still say it's a personal choice. If you're, willing to give that pet to a zoo, that's your choice. Just very quickly, before we go back to a fear, Jeremy Clarkson says that it breaks his heart when he sends his pigs off to the slaughterhouse. He hates it because he's kind of developed a relationship with them, but he knows that the reason that they're there, the reason they were born and they were fed, is to feed us. And he gets that, but it still breaks his heart. Do you ever feel that way about your cattle? Not really. I think he needs to grow a pair, to be honest with you, Mr. Clarkson, because the truth be said, he's come into the job late in life, OK? Yeah. So there is something that you've done all your life. Since a child, I've been hunting, shooting, fishing, keeping animals. Without these, I can't pay my mortgage, I can't pay my bills. So it's important that you understand that. It's a little bit different for Jeremy, but I've got to say he's done a great job as well at showcasing the farming side. But sometimes, maybe it's just for good telly that he has a little bit of a cry when he takes his little
Jeremy Clarkson will be delighted to find out he's softer than you. I'm sure that'll do his image a lot of good. Afia, let's come back to you. We have a personal relationship with our pets, don't we? We mourn them when they pass. They're part of our family in many cases. But do you understand that maybe the family that donated the pet pony was also trying to sort of educate youngsters about respect for animals in a different way? That, they're not sort of doting toys, they're not members of the family. We're part of a whole natural system, humans too.
I can understand that family may feel that way, but as well as having this personal relationship with our pets, we kind of have a social contract with them as well, that we've brought them into the family, that will treat them in a certain way, that they aren't out in the wild in that way. And I just think, for them to pass away and then to be fed to another animal is kind of breaking that social contract. And yes, you might have an instance where dogs or rabbits have loads and loads of offspring and you can't necessarily look after them. I understand that happens as well, but they can be rehomed, they can be given to other people, they can be given to pet charities, and also people can be aware of breeding and what to do and what not to do to make sure that they are not overrun, that they end up with pets they can't afford.
I have to say, I've got a foot in both camps here. I completely agree with our farmer. It makes complete logical sense to use animals whose lives are finished to continue life through the food chain. But if James was my rabbit, I wouldn't want to send James to the zoo to be eaten by a tiger. I couldn't bear it.
I couldn't bear it either. But shall we find out what you think? Not us soppier than even Jeremy Clarkson people here in the Good Morning Britain studio. We did ask you, is it OK to donate pets to feed zoo animals? 22% said yes. 78% said no, which I'm sure, Gareth, you won't be surprised to hear, will you? Great to have both of you on this morning. It's a very British response, I think. I think you probably would get a lower result if you were to ask that question somewhere else. But here in Britain, we just love our animals, don't we? And thank you to James for being so well-behaved. Good to speak to all three of you this morning.
How can a rabbit be badly behaved?
Well, it could have wriggled, it could have squiggled. Could have been like you, rabbiting on.